Hey, what's up, Exit the Matrix? Bob here. Hey, I hope you guys are having a great day. Just heading on my way to work here this morning. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Old Testament God known as Yahweh. Those of you that have been following me for a while on Exit the Matrix, Facebook, or even on this YouTube channel, I think you all know my stance on this, but for those of you that don't, are new to my content, my theories, my research, I'm going to state this as strongly as I can. The Old Testament God, Yahweh, is not the creator of all, is not the source energy, is in fact the very devil that the Bible warns you about. In fact, he is the very devil that Yeshua spoke about. A lot of people will say that, no, you're mixing him up with Satan, or Lucifer. Well, you got to understand something. You're talking about multiple beings when you start throwing out these other names. They are not all synonymous. Devil is a constructed name. Think about this. You add a D to evil, devil. God, you add an O, you got good. Good against evil. Light versus darkness, right? Well, we can go down a few different paths here as I break this down, but I'm going to go more directly to the Nag Hammadi to start with. For those of you who have not read the Nag Hammadi, you need to. Even if you're a Christian, even if you're Judean, or, non-religious, whatever. Obviously, if you're a Gnostic, you know exactly what I'm speaking about. The Nag Hammadi is a compilation of writings that were essentially hidden away from the world for approximately 2,000 years. They were discovered in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, buried and hidden. And the reason why the Nag Hammadi compilation of writings was hidden was because at the time the newly founded church, under the power of the Roman power structure, which included the priest class and the government class, was they were totally annihilating the Gnostics and their writings. There was a witch hunt out for them. And the reason it being is because the Gnostics were telling the truth. Gnostic means gnosis, which means like information or knowledge or learning, knowing. There's different connotations to it. But essentially what the Gnostics were teaching was that the Old Testament God, Yahweh, who claims, I am God, I am the only God, you must obey and worship me. I'm a jealous God. I'm the Lord of hosts, which means he's the Lord of war. Hosts means armies, people. Okay? They said that they called him the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth. They pictured him as a roaring lion's head on the body of a snake or a giant worm. You can actually see depictions of him in our modern times. If you've ever seen the car emblem of the was it the Alfa Romeo? I don't know how to say the name of that brand, right? They've actually got a depiction of Yaldabaoth. It's got a picture of the snake with the lion's head, and it's eating a human being. It kind of looks like a tongue, but it's actually a human being. Its legs out, sticking out of the mouth of this beast. This is literally on a car's emblem. Trust me, we'll go into this another day. Pretty much almost half of your car brand's emblems are actually depicted as ancient Anunnaki gods, Greek gods and such. But the Gnostics, they teach that this Yaldabaoth rules this world, and this world is a construct that he created to trap souls. And he created the angels and the demons, the archons they're called in the Gnostic writings, that control this world. They're his minions. They manage the matrix, so to speak. They would be the Mr. Smiths. And he would be the, I guess, the architect of the matrix. Now, the Gnostics also talk about the fact that he's a liar. That he knows that he is not the only God or higher divine creative being. He's actually a bastard son of Sophia, the female counterpart to the male creative force. And Sophia created Yaldabaoth behind the back of her opposite, her male counterpart of the creative force of the universe. And she created this bastard son. And when she realized the monster she created, she pushed him into a far corner of the universe. And when he became aware of himself, of itself, and it realized it had these insane creative powers, it started creating this world that we call the Earth realm, or the Matrix, like the common new term. Well, this Yaldabaoth was a manipulative, evil being and very jealous and not balanced, because it wasn't created with the combined masculine and feminine energies coming together in love, in unity, in that creation. It was off balanced. Kind of like a lot of these weirdos we see nowadays running around our world. So, this is where Yeshua, or the Christ consciousness, comes into this whole picture. The Gnostics teach that Sophia realized what Yaldabaoth had become, what he was doing, and he was entrapping divine sparks of divinity, or you could call them spirits or souls, in his construct. And so her solution was to send the Christ figure, a son of her in the masculine divine, to wake up spirits in this realm to the truth of their imprisonment, and to help lead them the way, how to help teach them and lead them out of this construct. So we could go a lot deeper into this. I'm going to stop here because I have other roads I want to take this. But read the Nag Hammadi. Even if you're a Christian, read it, because there is books that were not put in the Bible that are of other disciples of Yeshua. And you get a lot deeper teachings about Yeshua and the construct of this world. And it just goes way deeper than the Bible does. So read it. Hey, even if it doesn't resonate with you, fine. That's fine. But it'll at least add that viewpoint to your, your total knowledge and understanding. So at least if you don't believe it, when people talk about it, you know what they're talking about, and you have intelligence to understand what it's about. Okay, so now we already understand the Gnostics believe Yahweh was the demiurge. Okay, now we're going to go further back. we're going to go all the way back to the Sumerian cuneiform, to the original cuneiform writings. Let me make this clear to you. The oldest possible inscription that has ever been found about Yahweh only goes back to about 1000 BC. And that was on some kind of a ancient like pillar or some such that was found. And some say that that might have even been a later carving into that inscription that might have been added later. So we're not even positive if that's totally original, dating back to the time that inscription, that full block was made and fashioned and everything. So we don't know about that. I can't prove that either way. You could look it up yourself. But as far as on some kind of paper or something, it doesn't go back any further than 500 BC, okay, people? That's your Old Testament. Only about 500 BC. Now, cuneiform tablets have been dated as far back as 4000 BC. That's, goes back to the Arada people, Akkadian, even the earliest Sumerian form. So, we've all read about in Genesis, right? How God was walking through the garden and, the whole deal with Adam and Eve and of course, the snake, Satan deceiving Adam and Eve, and God kicking them out of the Garden of Eden. Okay, well, for those of you that don't know, this story is in the cuneiform. It's the whole Genesis story. The Sumerians already wrote down this story. Essentially, the Judeans stole this information when they fashioned their religion. A lot of it they stole from the Babylonians, Akkadians, and Sumerians, and the Zoroastrians, and the Egyptians, and later on added Greek tomes and Mithra worship and Sol Invictus worship, and then on and on and on. But that's another story for another day. Well, the Sumerian version is that the whole conflict in the Garden of Eden was not between God and Satan, or Lucifer, as some of you would believe. No, it was actually between Enlil, the commander of earth, the god of the air. You could liken him to Zeus in the Greek pantheon. And essentially, he becomes the main personality that Yahweh carries on through the Bible, through the Old Testament. And then you had his opposite, was actually his brother, not an angel created by him that was rebelling, like the Bible says. No. This was his brother, his rival, known as Enki. Also originally named Ea. In fact, the earth is named after Ea. Ki meaning earth, and Enki was the name given to him later on. Eventually, his name originally was Ea, but he was renamed Enki when he was on earth as one of the lords on earth. He was high level in the Anuna pantheon. I know later on that it was changed to the Anunnaki. The Anuna, though, they descended from heaven, according to Sumerians. And once they were established on earth, they became the Anunnaki, because they were the Anuna gods, and now they were situated on earth, Ki. Okay? So, yes, very close parallels to the Watchers, to the fallen angels, right? Or, essentially, the angels, period. Because we like to say any angels that come to earth are fallen angels, right? Well, that's ridiculous, because even in the Old Testament, angels visited Abraham and visited, other characters in the Bible, right? So let's just leave it at angels, okay? Anunnaki and Nuna, angels, watchers, all the same characters. Some good, some bad. Essentially rivals. Just like you would have Democrats and Republicans, right? And you have a struggle between them. And like they all pretend to us like they hate each other, and they are vying for power against each other. And they are cutthroat, but yet they're all buddies or related behind the scenes without us knowing, right? Well, that's essentially what the Anunnaki were. Now, I've already done videos on who I believe the Anunnaki truly are. Perhaps not a star race, an extraterrestrial race. And I go into that. You should look back at some of my videos. I don't have time to go into that right now. But essentially, that Old Testament God, Yahweh, was not the creator of all. That was one of the pantheon, one of the rulers of the pantheon of the Anuna gods. In fact, Enki and Enlil have a deity higher than them. It's their father, and they have a mother over them. The father is Anu. Anu in the Bible is called the Most High. Now, the Lord of Hosts is Enlil, because he is the god of war. He is like the commander of earth. He is the one that rules, that brought to heed the humanoids that were on earth. Now, his brother Enki was the scientist. He was the genetic scientist. He was the one that created Adam and Eve, or at least hybridized the human avatar, the Adam and Eve prototypes. You can verify this by looking up the cuneiform tablet. Enki and Ninmah, I believe it's create Adam. I believe it's called create the Adam or the Adamu. Anyways, you can find it. It's basically starts out with Enki and his half sister Ninmah, who interestingly had children with both Enlil and Enki, demigod children, or half. Not demigod. Half. She had children with both brothers. So you got to look into the Sumerian pantheon. It's really interesting. Like, it's just like the royalty now. They only have children within the royal bloodlines, just like the royal bloodlines do now. Very similar in the Sumerian pantheon. A lot of inbreeding going on, if you know what I'm talking about. So, anyways, in that cuneiform, it starts out with Enki and Ninmah drinking beer together. And as you know, the Sumerians say that the recipe for beer was handed down by the Anunnaki. Well, they're drinking together, they're having a good time, kind of flirting, and they start boasting to each other because they're both scientists. Ninmah is known as Isis in the Egyptian pantheon. She was also a scientist. She was like a medical officer, also she was like the head medical person of the Anunnaki. And she and those two, and with the help of Thoth, Ningazida, one of the sons of Enki, they all essentially worked on this project. But this was when I'm getting a little I had some in the road. It got me a little off my rocker there. So let me refocus here. So Enki and Ninmah, they're getting drunk together, and they start boasting about creating this human avatar. So they start both like playing around with the genetics, and they're both bringing forward these creatures that are just misshapen. It's like they're kind of human, but they got like deformities, and they're joking about it, laughing about it, like just literally torturing these beings. And They just keep on working at it until it gets closer to the actual upright, fully functioning human avatar, Adam. And there are other cuneiform that go into the finer details of this. But the point I'm trying to make is that these stories have come down from the Sumerians, and they were taken from the Judeans. And they were meshed into their story that they created. The funny thing is, though, they made themselves the hero of the story, the chosen ones, right? Well, when you go to ancient Sumeria and all that, the Sumerian cuneiform, there's the only chosen ones, the only royal are the Anunnaki, are the Anuna, perhaps the Atlanteans, the surviving Atlantean royal class. Anyways, that Old Testament God in your Bible, it is this being called Enlil. Even in the Sumerian cuneiform, he admits to being a jealous God. He's very angry with human beings. He's the one who brings the flood, which you can verify in Atrahasis. You can verify in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Enlil was the one who brought the flood. He wanted to wipe out humanity. He said that there were too many humans and they were too loud. They were upsetting him. He was also the God that threw Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, according to the Sumerian cuneiform. And the reason being is that his brother Enki, who's depicted as the serpent, was teaching them knowledge of who they were, that they were these divine sparks of divinity, that they were put into these human avatar bodies, and that he was explaining all this to them, that you are gods, you come from the source. And he was doing this behind his brother's back, because Enlil wanted a simple-minded, easily manipulated, controlled worker class, slaves. He didn't want divine beings understanding their creative abilities, and that they were actually equals to the Anunnaki, to the Atlanteans, because we all come from the same spark of divinity. It don't matter if you were Anunnaki or you were a spirit in this human avatar. The snake in ancient times was always depicted as wisdom. In fact, Thoth, like I mentioned earlier, was Ningazida, the son of Enki. When you see depictions of Ningazida, he's the caduceus, the snake with wings, because he was one of the smartest, the most full of wisdom Anunnaki there were, because his father Enki taught him. And then, as you see throughout time, his symbol is passed down to us to this day. And I've broken down the caduceus on my Facebook page, and maybe I'll do a video about that. But anyways, I gotta hurry up here. I'm almost to work. So anyways, what I'm trying to get at, people, is that this God that you claim is the true creator, is the father of Yeshua, is not. In fact, Yeshua said to the priest class of his time, to the Sadducees and the Pharisees, don't you know your father is the devil? Who were they worshiping? Who were they the priest class of? Yahweh. Don't you get it? Yeshua was trying to tell you. Remember what the Gnostics were teaching. The Gnostics were tied in with the Essenes. Yeshua learned with the school of the Essenes. It was the order of Melchizedek. In fact, John the Baptist was also a student of the Essenes. This is not knowledge that's hard to find, people. I do believe Yeshua walked the earth. Was he this Jesus Christ figure that the Roman Catholic puts in our faces? No. Jesus, Hail Zeus, is what that actually means. That's a made-up front character. They took the true stories of Yeshua and they added in all their propaganda. The priest class and the ruling class of Rome did that to you. They lied to you. And then the rabbis had a hand in the compilation of the Bible too, because they were trying to ensure that their legacy would be protected, that their lives would be protected. That the fact that their God is an Anunnaki, is the Demiurge, is not the creator of all, is not the source energy. Yeshua was trying to teach you that. Said, my Father is not of this world. He has a mansion with many rooms. Yes, because his creation is limitless, people. Okay? Yeshua knew that this Enlil character was being propped up by his fellow Judeans as the creator of all, and he knew it was a lie. He knew that he was actually the devil, the Demiurge. He knew that the true source, where we come from, the spirit realm we come from, was not of this world. He understood that this was a construct, a matrix. So I do believe in Yeshua. I know a lot of you think I'm like some devil worshiper. I'm like some, some like you hate, you hate Yeshua and you deny him. No, I deny your fake Jesus Christ. I know that Yeshua was a real person that walked the earth. He was he was a brother to us. We are all brothers and sisters of Yeshua. He was a master teacher that was taught the mystery schools. He was taught the Eastern arts. He was taught all the practices around the world. He even taught and learned with the Druids in as far as the British Islands, the British Isles. He knew what this world was, and he was a rebel. He was a mystic of his time. He was more of I guess what we'd call a hippie nowadays, or a new ager. He was not of the stock of the ruling elite, of the priest class elite in the Levant. He was a part of that, and he was fighting it the whole time, calling it out. And then what they do, they went and they twisted his words. They added into his words, his teachings. You'll find many of his teachings not in the Bible, in the Nag Hammadi, in fact, in the Dead Sea Scrolls. A lot of you think that book was compiled by God. You're full of it if you believe that, because it was mankind. And in fact, it was the evil man of the times. It was the priest class and the ruling class, just like today. Would you trust your Bible to be written by these clowns running the White House right now? By these Joel Osteens and these fake-ass TV evangelists? What if they were working together with our current government, compiling these books that came from this master teacher? Would you believe that? Just tell me. Come on, people. We got to start thinking here. You got to start looking within to find these answers, because we've all been lied to. And it's unbelievable that people read the Old Testament, which they probably don't. Let's be real. Do you really think that most Christians actually read the full Old Testament front to back to front? No, they don't. They go sit in church every Sunday, sometimes Wednesdays, Sundays, Saturdays, it don't matter. And they got Preacher Dan up there feeding them a few lines, a few verses, tells you about how it works with his life, and how it helped him out, how it'll help you out in life, and praise Jesus, right? I mean, let's sing now. Bring out the band. Woohoo! Pass that plate around. Let's get that money. Pastor Dan needs a new car. He needs an addition on his house. Come on, people. Wake up, people. You've all been lied to. You read that Old Testament, murder, pillaging, rape. In fact, there's multiple gods in the Old Testament because it's about the Anunnaki vying over the power structure of those times. The Anunnaki had their own city-states who worshipped them. There were city-states that were dedicated to Inanna, Ishtar, one of the Anunnaki. Yes, there were female angels and watchers. The whole male-only angels and male God is total BS also, people. My God. This world is designed on duality, feminine and masculine. Let's wake up, people. I mean, I'm getting tired of this. I mean, I don't understand how this is so hard for people to understand. Go read most of Deuteronomy. I don't know how the hell to say it. Anyways, that book is, my God, burn every village, every, town you come on. Push these people out of their land. We're taking it over. I'm your Lord, the Lord of hosts. Go kill every man, woman, and child. Take the young girls and the women as your spoils. That means sex slaves, people. My God, wake up, people. This is the loving God that Yeshua was talking about? Hell no. Tell me once in the Old Testament where this God of love ever shows love to anybody. He demands obedience, and if you don't give him exact obedience, he wants you murdered. He destroys you. He curses you. He doesn't just curse you. No, he curses your son, your grandchild, on and on and on. 7 times curse your bloodline. The dude's a joke, man. Come on. He's a petty pile of trash. He's a fake God. He's a demiurge. He's a devil, is what you're worshiping, people. Wake up. Yeshua was trying to warn you, and you turned your back on Yeshua, and you're over there, Yahweh, praise Yahweh, the God that's name cannot be spoken, even though he's got 15 different names in the Old Testament. Oh, that's actually because those weren't all him. Those were different gods. Oh yes, there's tons of gods from the Sumerian pantheon in the Old Testament, and they're battling and vying over power, because that's what they were doing. The city-states were vying over power against each other in those times. And each city-state was dedicated to a different Anuna god, to a different watcher, to a different, perhaps, royal bloodline surviving Atlantean, priest king, or whatever you want to call him. So, I know I get worked up on this subject, people. It's because I used to be under this illusion. I used to believe that the Old Testament was the absolute truth, that I was so hardcore. I used to pray to Yahweh. It sickens me to admit that, because I was giving my energy, my prayer energy. That's what prayers are. It's a form of energy. I was giving that to this false deity that masquerades as God, and he's not. He's actually the devil. So I just want you guys to understand this. This is I'm very passionate about it, because so many have been deceived. You're talking about what about close to 2 billion people now follow this false religion. 2 billion people. They follow this amalgamation. I'll go into the New Testament another day, you people. I just want you to understand that's a whole nother subject. Sun worship. Once again, they took this true character, Yeshua, and they warped a new religion from his teachings. And they wrapped it and balled it all up with Sol Invictus, sun worship, Greek pantheon worship, and such. So, people, please, get mad at me all you want, because you've been told, I know you've been told your whole life in church that Old Testament God, Yahweh, is the Father, is part of the Trinity, right? It's a total lie, people. It even says how Yahweh was walking on the earth in the Garden of Eden, how he showed himself many times. Yeshua told you he was not of this earth. But yet you still fall for this. You're not listening to what it's because you've been manipulated. I get it. I was, man. I used to be the hardest core. I used to dig through the Bible, and I was passionate about it. And then I started reading the Sumerian Cuneiform, and I read the Nag Hammadi, and I started looking at other sources, and then I started connecting the dots, and I started realizing, look, people, this is all a lie. We've all been lied to. We've been tricked to worship a false deity. And In fact, we've ignored the teachings of Yeshua, and we've been tricked to worship another false god, one that they created, that they twisted off of the true character Yeshua. And they warped. Just like we see nowadays, everything gets corrupted, right? So go read those. If you truly think a God that says it's okay to murder and kill and pillage, to take away people's land, to take away, to kill all the men, take their animals as spoils, take their women and their children as spoils, take their children to be your slaves. If you think that's okay and that's an all-loving God, people, you got some bigger problems than I can even explain, because you can rail and rail against what's going on right now. You can rail against, the business of children, if you get what I'm saying. But yet, you give your power and your worship to a God that literally demanded that? Are you any better? Are you not empowering that same force that's in this world now that controls all this stuff? Just think about that. Hey, one thing you guys can take from me, I may not be the best speaker. I know some of you get mad because I say a lot, and I do, and it takes me a while to make my points. It's because I like to talk, okay? I like to create paths that you can follow and go down different roads. I'm giving you tidbits. Some of it you may like, some of it you may not. And I know I piss you off because I'm putting little chinks in that force field of bullshit that's been built around you your whole life, right? And those chinks get a little bigger each time you listen to me. And as much as you hate what I'm telling you, you start feeling some of that truth seeping through those cracks, right? I'm just trying to wake you guys up and empower you, okay? Enlighten you. True enlightenment about what this world is. So anyways, guys, I got to go. I'm actually running late. So, hey, I appreciate you guys. I love you, and I will talk to you later.